Hello and welcome to episode 4 of my Silicon Brighton CTO series. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Martyn Fagg, who is the CTO of Brighton-based B2B SaaS technology company Tillo, formerly Reward Cloud. And Tillo have got a platform technology that is redefining the gift card and reward loyalty market. And I think it's probably fair to say that some of you watching over the course of the last few years since Tillo have been since they were founded, you may probably have used a gift card or a loyalty card which is powered and supported by the Tillo technology. So I'm really interested to dive into a bit more about how the business was formed, some of the technology behind it, and some more of the numbers in terms of the amount of transactions and brands that they're supporting, which should be really interesting. So hello Martyn, thanks for joining me.
Hi Matt, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So tell me a bit about sort of a brief introduction to yourself and a brief overview of Tillo, and then we can move into the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career as a software engineer. I went to University of Sussex, a local boy. Yep. Been working in IT for the last sort of coming up 20 years. Started off in e-learning and foreign exchange, point of sale software, the sort of transactional business. So not dissimilar to what I'm doing now. But about 4 years ago, I left that world and joined Tillo, and joined the company in that sort of early stages. It's been set up but hadn't launched. So we launched about a month after I joined, and just in time for Black Friday, 2016. It was a really exciting time, sort of the usual kind of early stage startup where we were looking to get something up and running quickly, something that our clients could use. We launched with primarily Amazon gift cards, grown from there.
Sounds like a good client to have.
Yeah, great. And we started with some really key clients sort of buying those gift cards. So for some background, Tillo is a platform that lets all sorts of companies buy digital gift cards for all sorts of reasons, be marketing incentives, and a lot of it is in cash out. So if you're earning money online, you go to Quidco or Top Cashback, you might be able to turn that money into a gift card. Or you may have used some of our clients as an employee of a business, you get access to a perks platform. So one of them's Perks at Work or Reward Gateway. There's a huge industry of around gift cards. Last time I looked, I think the UK industry is something like £7 billion pounds a year in gift cards, and we're getting a good chunk of that. It's been a lot's changed in that time. When I joined, I think there were 6 or 7 of us. Since then, we've moved office a couple of times as we're sort of growing. We're now over 30 people. And processing millions of pounds of gift cards every day. It's been a lot of work, but it's a good experience.
Yeah, and in, I guess, a relatively short space of time from when the business was founded in 2016 to, get that large portion of the market share and also grow in terms of headcount, seems to have happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some quite ambitious goals, and the the B2B gift card market was quite ripe for somebody to come in and really expand. We sort of focused on automation and ease of use. But previously, a lot of companies would be going directly to the retailers and asking to buy like a bulk order of gift cards, and they'd get a spreadsheet back, and then they'd have to distribute that spreadsheet of codes to their employees or whatever their use case is. And we really championed being API first, and so we could allow a lot of tech-driven companies to connect to our API and get access to a large range of brands through this one point. And try and make us the sort of the single point of contact they needed to get access to a large range of brands.
So becoming that platform that can offer those connections between brands, businesses, and consumer that perhaps was a little bit disparate before, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. We see ourselves as the sort of network sitting in the middle. We've very much got two different types of clients. We've got the retailers on one side who have their gift cards to offer, and then we've got the clients who are buying the gift cards on the other side. And so we let any retailer sell to any wide range of clients, and then client access to a wide range of retailers. And then gradually over the years, we've seen our product set expand. We've launched things like a virtual MasterCard. So as well as straightforward retailer gift cards, we can do things like issue a MasterCard in all sorts of different currencies. And they're a great use for reward because the customer can then go and spend them in a much wider range of places. It's a sort of slightly different use case to the gift cards, but similar kind of idea.
And in terms of, so if we go back to the beginning slightly, with yourself and 5 or 6 others, and you had, a fully functioning product, is that fair to say? You had a sort of an MVP or a product that was working, you could take to market. I mean, and I guess it's changed a lot over the last 4 years since you've added new features, built new services, and got new customers. But what were the key considerations that you had to give to design, architecture, and product development?
The big thing for me, I think, is when we are starting out, is to have something that you can develop very quickly. And people often talk about the minimum viable product, MVP, but it really is key to have something. You need to be able to build something quickly and prove your idea works, prove there's actually is the take up. Before we got to the point where we launched, we had a couple of other different ideas and sort of related but different, and the company pivoted when we saw the real sort of key gap that we could fill. So it's really useful to be able to have a team that's responsive, but have a platform that you don't try and make the perfect thing day one. Very much focus on getting something that's quick to market and prove it works. And then when it works, you then iterate on it, and you may well build up a bit of technical debt if you've had to react very quickly. It might not be the most the most flexible product, but you can grow on that once you start to make some money, once you start to get some clients, people using it. That's where you get the really useful insights. One of the early hires that we had at Tillo was a product manager. Somebody could come in and spend that time really analysing what clients need, getting that constant feedback, and just focused on that great product from day one.
And I guess being able to, as you sort of get information and process that data that you get from your customers, being able to be responsive and build out new features based on that. Once you've kind of almost trying to find your place.
And from day one, we've really taken the approach, as many people do, using Agile and Scrum to make sure that we can be releasing really quickly. We do from day one. We've been doing major releases every 2 weeks, and then smaller releases in that cycle as well. And that's really allowed us to sort of, instead of just going on big projects over here, we're just sort of constantly iterating along the way. And it may be that idea we had 3 months ago, where we wanted to go, has just changed over time. You sort of you realise it's not quite right, or people have different priorities. As often as you talk to them and try and understand what a client wants, or what a market needs, you don't always get it right first time. So iteration's key.
Yeah. And I guess just looking at some of I'll refer back to my notes here, some of the numbers in terms of the growth of customer acquisition, the growth in terms of sort of £1 million worth of transactions and brands, and also presence in internationally new countries and so on that you guys are involved with. Significant increases in transactions and numbers year on year, 100% or more growth. Now that's obviously going to have an impact on some of the technology decisions that you guys are making, or you'll have to have the foresight that you're going on this sort of scale-up mission. What attention do I need to pay to the technology and the infrastructure to be able to support that fairly rapid growth? What were the key considerations when building and iterating the platform that you need to pay attention to be able to sustain and support?
So I'd say one of the key ones, it might seem obvious for a lot of people, is picking what environment you're going to run in. So we've chosen AWS as our platform. We've been in there since we launched. And that's given us a fantastic base so that we could grow the platform. We lean on a lot of Amazon's services. So things like their managed database service, it could be cheaper to run it yourself, to just use a virtual machine and host a database. But they've done some great work producing something that can scale with you. You don't have to specify how big your database is going to be. It'll just grow with you. So using a lot of those kinds of services can save you a lot of time, so you can get up and running more quickly, but also help you scale. Sort of key to have some people in the team that really understand the kinds of things that can break as you scale. Things like hitting a database. If you've got lots of transactions, that's a lot of inserts, that's a lot of reads. Optimizing for those sorts of things, caching data in the right sorts of ways. There's just sort of, but also constantly monitoring your system. So we use things like New Relic, which let us monitor in real time all the transactions that are going through, and finding those sort of pain points and keeping a close eye so that when you do see something, you can react before it becomes a major problem. And we're fortunate we've never had any sort of system outages. We've had a very robust system. That is through that constantly watching, constantly iterating, and making sure that we're sort of scaling the architecture as we've grown and the number of transactions has grown. And it's not something you can just do once and get right. Every year or every 6 months, you'd be constantly reviewing, making sure that you're stress testing your application and dealing with load that is greater than you're expecting. Right. So you can sort of test it and prove that it works at higher scales.
Yeah. Right, that makes sense. And something I'm interested in, only having a certain degree of technical knowledge, given the various sort of infrastructure and cloud providers we've got these days, I guess the main ones being Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. What makes you go with one more than another? Has someone got a slightly larger product ecosystem or a better support? Or I think you alluded to the flexibility. Is that something that's...
I don't think it's unique to them. I think they're all competing. I think they're all worth looking at. For me, AWS was great because at the point we joined, it was very much the largest player there. It was... I'd been to a lot of AWS conferences and so on. They have quite a lot of a good ecosystem out there. So there's plenty of advice, there's plenty of guides, there's plenty of people with that experience. So that was a great reason for going down there. We were also working very closely with Amazon, the gift card front, and they had a nice program where as a startup, we could get access to some free credits for getting us up and running. So that helps with the monthly bills, which is always good. Right. But there are lots of benefits to going. If you're a Windows platform, Windows-based platform using .NET and Microsoft's development tools, then going down Azure route can make sense. They're obviously something they focus on. Likewise, if you are heavily interested in Kubernetes and that sort of Docker container-based infrastructure for your architecture, then Google have they've created and adopted Kubernetes and they push it hard, and they it's sort of the native home for that kind of thing. But that said, Amazon have been doing a lot of work on their sort of managed Kubernetes service, and that's something we've been adopting recently. And so they're learning a lot from Google in that respect as well. So they all have their strengths and weaknesses. They all have different costs and so on. But
that makes sense. Yeah, so kind of dependent on, I guess, the internal knowledge base, also the technology stack that you're using and how that fits in with it, and so on. Cool. And in terms of the sort of the growth of the business from a headcount perspective, as a CTO, how is that? How do you sort of keep a sustainable agile culture when scaling quite quickly? And what are the key characteristics, if you like, that you look for when adding to your team?
When you join or you start an early stage startup, it's very different from when you get that sort of later stages. You tend to be very hands-on when you're coming on as a CTO into a company. Early days, it's often more like a lead developer role, and so you're very much working very closely with everyone around you as well. So you might be sitting alongside and doing just as much of the development as somebody else in your team. So you want to make sure that you're hiring people that have complementary skills, have very and that you can work with, and that sort of comes with a culture thing. You really want to be hiring people in any small company. You want to be hiring people who fit in and have a similar kind of ethos. You don't want a cookie cutter, everyone the same. Not everyone should have the same opinions and so on. You want that sort of breadth of opinion, but you need people who have the same common goal, same kind of drive. Having people who can really believe in the company and what you're trying to achieve, because it is a lot of hard work in those early days. You're all in it together. And so as well as being all in together, you need to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. So communication is key, making sure that people understand the importance of what they're doing, that it has benefits, that they can see what they've worked on this thing, they've worked hard to deliver this product, and now this is the feedback from the clients, this is how they react to it, this is what it's enabled the business to do, giving that sort of visibility on company growth or company problems that are coming up, making sure people understand that. It's very important to trust in people as well. So if you want a good culture that you want to grow, don't micromanage people. You're trying to find somebody who you trust into the team. If you don't trust them, maybe you shouldn't have hired them. So making sure that you delegate the work to them and let them run with it and deliver, support them and be there, for them. But ultimately trust them to get their job done. And then you can, when you're sort of in those early days, be careful of, it sort of relates to culture as well, but be careful of not pushing people too hard for too long. You often have a very, short-term deadline that you need to meet. You've got to get something out for a client next week. It might mean a lot of hours. Just keep in mind that you can't do that constantly. You are trying to deliver something quickly to prove that it works, but your company needs to grow over time. You want this company to succeed over the next 5-10 years. You can lose good people if you burn out, if you burn them out or burn yourself out by just working too hard too long. So just try and find that pace that works for you and your team.
Striking that balance, perfect, that makes sense. And something that I've always been interested in terms of, if we just look at the software engineering team, for example, I know you've mentioned you've got a team of product people and sort of client-facing guys as well that will be at the coalface speaking to customers and then feeding that back to the engineering team. How much of the role of a modern kind of software engineer or software developer in a sort of small to medium-sized product-driven business is actually coming up with ideas for new features and new services, or how much of that sort of cross-functional nature is present in Tillo in terms of those teams working closely with product and maybe customer success to a degree?
I think so that's something we've been very keen on from day one. We have company-wide meetings to every week so that we can give everyone a visibility of of what we're trying to achieve at the moment. We also run regular workshops with the entire company. So our Chief Product Officer, Eddie, he drives regular workshops where everyone in the company is invited and encouraged to give their ideas for what could make the product better. That might be looking at it from their point of view as, I work in finance and this change could really help our clients, or it could really help our team. Or they might just have, everyone's got a very varied background. So they might have ideas from all sorts of different areas, not necessarily just relating to them and their team. It might relate to the customers or just a new business idea. We feed all of that in. We use a product from another local company called ProdPad, based down in Hove, and that's our product management solution. That's where we capture all of our feedback from our clients, our feedback internally. That's all channeled into this one place where our product team can then prioritize based on all that different feedback and get that sort of clear roadmap.
I guess it's a kind of the beauty. It sounds like that sort of inclusive culture where everyone's voice has been heard. That's certainly a common theme I'm hearing from successful product-driven businesses, is giving everyone that sort of space and opportunity to have an opinion and to be a bit creative, tends to, as well as paying attention to the balance between how much you can expect of people, that tends to improve productivity and creativity.
Yeah, absolutely, and people really value it when they see their
high degree.
See their idea come to fruition. Somebody comes up with an idea. One of the things, again, that Eddie will do is recognize when that product new feature launches. He'll call back to them on Slack, to the whole company, and just say, look, this feature that Samantha came up with is launched this week, and we've already had this great feedback from our clients. So they're getting that sort of recognition that it was their idea, they championed it, it came to fruition, had that impact.
Yeah, fantastic, great. And in terms of, I guess we wouldn't be in 2020 without having a bit of a chat about this year, what's gone on, how that's affected you guys as a business. Everyone's been affected in different ways through the challenges that we faced, given the pandemic and lockdown. How did that initially affect Tillo as a business? What did you have to do to react to that? And how are you looking coming out of?
It's obviously been a tough time for a lot of people. I think, like a lot of companies, one of our main priorities, and when that first lockdown was sort of looming, was making sure that everyone working from home didn't feel isolated. We were doing this, the usual kind of things of team catch-ups on Zoom, company-wide meetings on a Friday afternoon, everyone having a drink and a laugh, or running quizzes and getting that sort of engagement. We were running photo competitions, baking competitions, this kind of thing. Just trying to find something that different people would get engaged with. Not everyone wants to do a quiz, not everyone wants to take a photo, show where they've been out for a walk or whatever, but having a sort of breadth of things, having those regular catch-ups, making sure that teams were catching up regularly. Most of our teams will have their sort of daily stand-ups, whether they're developers doing their normal stand-up or finance team, they would also have the same kind of things, commercial team likewise. So making sure that people aren't feeling too isolated, making sure they're well prepared at home. We're in a good position technically because everyone had laptops, we didn't have any kind of infrastructure in the office, it's just a place to work. So it was very easy for us to get set up, but it was very much more the culture change, because we've always been a close company where everyone works in the office and pretty much 5 days a week. So it was a big change for us to be working fully remotely, and a lot of companies do it already and they make it work. But when you're used to that sort of face-to-face constant communication with everyone, it is a big change. So yeah.
I think keeping everyone connected has been hugely important for us as well, and in trying to keep some of that atmosphere, if you like, and team spirit. You're going to sacrifice some of it, unfortunately, by not being together in one place. Has that, given that you're an innovative business that is undergoing sort of new product development, has that affected the collaboration or any of the sort of innovation that sometimes you might get in stand-ups when you're face-to-face? Has that?
I think we've adapted quite quickly.
Would you adapt quite quickly?
It is a challenge. Some conversations just feel easier face-to-face when you do it. But we've continued our product workshops. We've continued our strategy sessions, and having, we're very lucky. I think we're all very lucky that we're in this time where Zoom and Google Meet and Teams and everything are so popular and so easy for us to set up. If this had happened even 5 years ago, I think it would have been more of a challenge than it is today. But it is something that you need to focus on and really work at to make sure that it works. Make sure that people aren't joining these sessions and just feeling isolated, not really voicing their opinion, making as a chair on these meetings or somebody orchestrating them, just making sure that no one person is dominating. With Zoom, it's so easy for somebody to talk, it cuts out everyone else. So it's very easy to talk over other people and not allow everyone that input. So having that, having somebody on that call who really pulls out the sort of opinions from people is key. And also, I think gradually that we're moving to a more asynchronous sort of way of working. So you're not relying on that constant live communication with everyone. That's always going to be useful to have those discussions, but also writing things down and proposing things in a structured email or document that people can then read and think about in their own time. That has benefits. It can allow people to be a bit more considered before they react to something and giving their input on something. So there are some things that if we go back to working in the office full time, we might adopt some of these ways of working because they do work better. And so it's just trying to work out what works best for you as a company and your team. No, that is true. That's something we were discussing when we had a management meeting on Friday, and that was one of the points, was a couple of people feeling very overloaded in the number of Zoom calls they were having. The point was made, some things do just work better as an email. You don't need to have this sort of full calendar of 9 to 5 meetings. It's some are worthwhile, some probably not.
Yeah, it's a good point actually, and something that we quickly learned and cut back on, I would say, after the first initial period. So that's fantastic in terms of the working arrangements and the culture and how you can maintain that effectiveness and productivity of working together. As far as trading goes and the business affected, obviously trading was affected for, I imagine a lot of the brands that you work for, some more so than others, but because you increase sales, particularly for, as a digital business and helping people with a online presence, I would say, were you adversely affected from a trading perspective, or did you see a spike? Or how
obviously, as a company that provides gift cards, we're very much in the retail space. And in those first couple of weeks in sort of early April, when the lockdown came, we saw sort of a slight dip in sales, but that fairly quickly picked up. There was a bit of a shift around in terms of which retailers were popular. Obviously, the travel sector suffered more than, but then we saw spikes in some of the retailers that that are strong online. Obviously Amazon, Currys, people like that who have this sort of strong online presence. They sort of rose to meet that demand, and we actually we have quite strong growth that we're working towards, and after those first couple of weeks that got back on track and we started to exceed our expected growth. So obviously there's a bit of a shift away from physical to digital as well. Physical gift card market is much larger, has historically been much larger than digital market, but that's had a boost this year in terms of it was always going to replace it, but it's sort of increasing more. And then in terms of our transactions generally, we had a massive spike because we were partnering with one of our clients who they were approached by the Department for Education for supplying the free school meals vouchers. So obviously with schools having to shut, they needed to still be able to provide those meals to the client, to the pupils and parents. And so they needed a way of getting that money to the people and being sure that that money was being spent on food and not on other things. So the retailers could have dealt with it directly, but it made sense for the DFE to deal with one organisation, and they chose Edenred, who were one of our clients. Edenred are a very large company, and they have all sorts of things from reward and incentives programs, meal vouchers, big organisation, and we supplied a large proportion of their digital gift cards. So they came to us and said, how can we manage this? We've got this huge ramp up of transactions we're expecting that involves big changes financially. So the big funds that need to be passed through a system, lots of reconciliation, lots of challenges on the volume, lots of emails being sent out. And so we worked very closely with them to build this solution that would allow schools to send out vouchers to parents for £15 a week that could then be swapped for any supermarket. And we helped bring on board, there were existing supermarkets already in the B2B gift card market that were already straightforward to set up. And also new supermarkets like Aldi, McCall's and Iceland, who weren't able to operate in that space already. So we partnered with them and very quickly got these new retailers into the market to add and bolster the free school meals choice so that parents could pick a supermarket that was close to them.
Yeah. And how would you sort of connect?
Yeah,
driven through
where possible, we're always API first. So there is a variety of digital gift card platforms that we connect to. So we have well over 40 integrations to different gift card platforms. Some retailers aren't able to support APIs though, so we have to have a mechanism for them loading codes into our system, and then we can issue those codes. So there's a mix, and that's sort of part of the challenge, is managing that inventory of codes, making sure that they don't run out, making sure that that they're being issued in the right way, the right values. Huge reconciliation challenge, and it's certainly given our finance team a lot of work, and operations team for managing those stock levels and things. But it went through pretty smoothly.
Yeah. Well, hats off, and it's fair to say you would have been all hands on deck at that point, trying to get that delivered in what I read here was somewhere like 14 days, 2 to 3 weeks. Was it you were?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the big challenges with that was, from a technical perspective, is we were looking at a massive increase in volume and a different pattern of volume, which can affect your sort of architecture in terms of, it was large volume coming from a single client with a small number of brands, which can impact how you optimize the system from a database point of view, from a reporting point of view, and so on. We had some very long days, long nights, just making sure that we could test our system sufficiently, that we could put through that run rate that was needed. It was critical. All eyes really were on this project, and as a nation, the national press would be looking at it if it was going to fall down. So we needed to put a lot of work into just being confident that we could deal with that load, and just making sure that the architecture was right, the hosting was right, just all layers that would be able to cope with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, just looking at, I guess, some of the numbers here, that you were responsible for 95% of all the vouchers, digital vouchers were issued by Tillo, 22,500 schools enrolled, 92% of schools in England, 1.3 million families needed support, 128 million meal allowances were made, £385 million worth of vouchers were issued, which equates to 20 meals purchased every 20 seconds, 7 days a week for 5 months. So, I mean, for me reading that's pretty significant and good going. So, I mean, hats off to being able to deliver that so quickly and being involved in such a great project. It's really a fantastic achievement. And I think, I guess, from the outside looking in, that's got to be testament to what you built in the first place, and being able to, with a few tweaks and some stress testing, like you mentioned, being able to say, yes, we can support that and do it without a hitch pretty quickly. Obviously got a really fantastic architecture and blueprint.
It's a system that's been able to grow, and one we're very proud of, and it's just shows how good the team is really. And we rely on some very clever people who can help architect that, who know their different specialisms, in databases and infrastructure and coding, and trying to build this sort of architecture that can grow in that way.
Yeah. And just going into that architecture in a little bit more detail for those people that would be interested in the kind of technology that underpins that, what is the stack that makes up the kind of application, database and infrastructure layers?
So we use AWS as our environment. We use their managed database service, RDS. We use their caching systems like Redis. It's got an Elasticache managed system that we use there. And then the platform that we're building, we use a framework called Laravel, which is a PHP-based framework, and that's allowed us to build this product as quickly as we have, really. Quite a lot of the sort of supporting framework for creating a great web application. And front end is built in obviously JavaScript with Vue.js framework, something that we're really happy with. We've had a couple of iterations on our software of rewrites or rebuilds of the front end in particular, and the back end has just iterated over time. And then gradually we've been moving towards a microservices architecture. So as I was saying at the start of the call, I think we built the system quickly. We built the sort of minimum viable product we could sell, and quite often that'll end up being a monolith, a big, all-consuming application that can then be difficult to support. So over the last few years, we've been moving towards a microservices-based architecture that makes it easier to scale. It means you can focus different technologies in different areas. That's not all now built in PHP. With adopting things like Python for reporting, and just gradually sort of bringing that out, and that's helped us with that scaling. And that's where the kind of containerization technologies can come in as well. Kubernetes is the one that everyone's talking about these days, really, and for good reason. It gives you a really nice platform for putting in your different pods, running your different services without needing to run so many virtual servers. Your costs can be fairly well managed because you can share some of your virtual servers inside that Kubernetes environment, but still have your self-contained pieces of code performing different functions. We also make use of AWS Lambda, their serverless functions. So that can be really good for certain tasks, running those ad hoc scheduled tasks, or dealing with sort of APIs where you want to be able to scale really quickly. Serverless is very interesting, but it's about really picking the right tool for the job. I think we're not going to go all down one way or all down the other. We're very much using a mixture of different technologies as appropriate.
Yeah, great. And in terms of the next 12 months for you guys, what does that look like? What sort of interesting things do we look forward to?
We've got a big roadmap. We had a strategy meeting this morning where we're just trying to talk about priorities, because there are so many growth areas for us. Trying to pick the right ones in the right order is always a challenge, but we've got some interesting things with card-linked offers. So we have a product we're working on called Link, and that allows you as a consumer to spend and earn cash back in store as well as online. And you can spend with your normal credit card or debit card and build up that cash back pot, and then you can then turn that into gift cards. So when you build up some cash back, you can then say, right, I've got this £30 I've earned, and burn it onto an Amazon gift card or a Debenhams I'm going to spend. And just lots of related products in the ecosystem. So we're looking to grow our team quite considerably over the next 6 months to help us be able to develop more quickly and develop more products, and sort of split down our development team further so that we've got these individual teams delivering the different products.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's sort of And those teams be made up of sort of cross-functional teams made up
exactly,
of
yeah. So we very much adopted the sort of DevOps approach, and having these cross-functional teams. They each have their own sprints and stand-ups. We're increasing the number of product managers that we've got in the company, increasing the number of designers, testing. So we've got these people sitting closely with these teams, and don't have these sort of silos where you'll just pass up, right, project's going to sit here, and that's going to sit with this team, and that's going to sit with this team. Instead, we've just got these people who are working closely together to deliver quickly.
And I guess those people then, when they're separated into those teams and they're focusing purely on building a new set of features or services, they can get involved in from kind of ideation through to design, conceptualization, delivery, and actually, have that product ownership, and then be involved ongoing, which I guess gives them
really feel like you're owning that product and
creating this new.
You've done great work to deliver it. Key.
Yeah. Exciting. Sounds like another busy year ahead for you then, with more growth plans, more new customers, and new products and new features to be part of. So
no, never slow down. Yeah, we're always busy. It's no slowing down. To be.
Yeah, sounds like it, definitely. Thanks very much for that. And in terms of one final question, which I always ask everybody I've got onto the series so far. If you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice 5-10 years ago, or speak to some of the people who engage within our Silicon Brighton community about the future CTOs or heads of engineering, tech leaders of tomorrow, is there any one or any few?
I'd say the sort of big one for me is making sure that you take an interest in all aspects of the business. It's very different when you're moving from a software developer role, where you're sort of an individual contributor, or you might be managing a few people, but you're still very much focused on the software. When you're in a CTO role, you need to be talking and working very closely with every area of the business. You'll be working with sales and marketing and finance and product. You need to be able to have a good view on the market that you operate in, have that sort of wider visibility. So I think it's really good to take an interest in all areas of the business, really understand how your company makes money, what's important to your clients, what's needed to deliver the operation of the business, not just delivering the product and sort of, you could be the best product team in the world and delivering a web application, but if it's not being sold in the right way, or you're not supporting sales well enough, then you won't be commercially successful. So, and then just always be learning. Just don't assume because you're the CTO, you don't have to learn anything more, that you know everything, because certainly from my own experience, I don't know everything, and there's always more to learn. So build up a support network of people in similar positions who you can learn from and ask that. It can be a bit lonely at the top, nobody else has got that perspective in the company necessarily of your sort of technology and the challenges there. So having other people who can that you can just be as a sounding board is great. So there's some really good groups like Brighton CTO. It's a great place to meet a few people who are in a similar position to you. And then up in London, there's some great groups like CTO Craft, there's over 2,000 CTOs there who provide coaching and mentoring, and there's a Slack community. So it's one of the.
Excellent, great. I was going to say, apart from the colleagues that you've got that you can learn from, what other resources you call upon? And I guess there you have it. There's plenty of meetup groups. We're going some way to trying to replicate some of the the larger and specialist meetup groups that we've got in London through Silicon Brighton, which hopefully next year we'll be able to get a few more off the ground. Obviously, I handled a little bit this year, and we had to go virtual, which isn't quite the same. But hopefully, in 2021, we can pick up where we left off. And like you point out, there's the Brighton CTO group, and if you do a bit of digging online, there's plenty of other smaller meetup groups. But you might specialise in a particular language or a particular way of working, but there's lots of resource out there for people. And I think we're lucky in Brighton; we've got quite an engaged and supportive community. So people do tend to be or tend to want to be able to be there to support each other and encourage each other, and
absolutely, it's a very friendly community, and it is important to support others. You're all in it together ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that sort of brings us to a close, and there's some really interesting information to take away there for everyone. Great story with regards to Tillo and how you've got to where you are today, and some of the fantastic projects you've been involved with. If you're watching this, I guess watch this space. There's obviously some really exciting initiatives and growth plans for the business, which you can keep abreast of through Tillo's social channels and their website, and also following some of the news that Silicon Brighton will be putting out. So thanks very much for joining, Martyn, and hopefully we'll see you at one of our events very soon.